How sad and tragic is it that little girls, when they're growing up, are very likely still at a very, very young age going to be sat down by a parent and told, if someone takes you, fight, never go to a second location, do not walk with headphones in, do not get distracted, and if they do take you, leave some trace of DNA so you can help your case. It is such a heavy thought that from the time that we are so young, we have to be taught to be aware of the people around us, because the possibility of us encountering someone that might want to bring harm to us is a real thought. But what if that person turns out to be a person in your own family? What if the person that makes you question everything you have ever known is your own father? I want to talk about Michaela Renee Settles. Her cousin has made so many videos of her on here. I'll tag her in the comments seeking justice. So I really encourage you guys to go over to her page and listen to everything that she has to say. Michaela Renee Settles had just turned 18. She had just graduated high school in North Carolina, and she had a plan. She wanted to move to California. She had always wanted to end up in California, and after high school, making the move and moving in with her biological father, Stephen Vincent Chavez, with plans to attend college and build a new life, it seemed like the best idea. Moorpark College specifically is where Michaela wanted to go to school. Her father had promised to pay for her school, pay for her tuition while she lived with him, and everything felt like Michaela was on track to making all of her dreams come true. Family members had plans to spend time with her in California to ease the transition. They were excited for her. She was excited, but 2 days wouldn't even go by before Michaela's life changed forever. On July 21st of 2025, Michaela called her mother in distress, urgently asking to be picked up. Her mother didn't even need to know the details to know that something was wrong. Quote, "It was just the fear in her voice, her crying. I didn't need details. I knew something was wrong, and I said, I'm on my way," end quote. She rushed over to Michaela's father's house, and the state she found her daughter in broke her. Michaela could barely move. She couldn't even walk. Put aside how distressed she was emotionally and psychologically for a second. Physically, she was in so much pain. Her uncle had to carry her because she couldn't walk without assistance, and him, along with her mom, rushed her to the ER, where once again her uncle had to pick her up and carry her inside. When she got to the hospital, she was given a gown to change into, and within minutes it was covered in red in the front, in the back. At the hospital, Michaela told authorities what happened. What she had just told her mother happened right before she picked her up. That night, her father, Stephen Vincent Chavez, had not only given her drinks with the purpose of getting her drunk, but he had taken advantage of her, violated her for 4 hours. His DNA was found inside of her. When she asked him to stop because she was in so much pain, he laughed to her face, looked at her, and told her, quote, "Well, you know what that means," end quote. Once at the hospital, police officers and investigators were called, a kit was done, medical records were filed, and a police report was started. Authorities then also began the process of getting Michaela into a safe house. That same night, Stephen was arrested, and at first, his bond was set at $500,000, but then somehow and for some reason, it was reduced to $250,000. To the charges, Stephen Vincent Chavez pleaded not guilty. He eventually posted bail and walked out of jail, a free man waiting for trial. Meanwhile, Michaela went back home to North Carolina, traumatized but alive. Her family members watched her closely in the following weeks because they were extremely worried about her, and they had a reason to be. But the one thing that the family was able to hold on to was the hope that justice was coming. 5 months later, on December 22nd of 2025, 18-year-old Michaela Renee Settles took her own life. And sure, she was the person behind that decision, but her family members believed that that decision wasn't one that was up to her at all. It was what happened to Michaela that destroyed her from the inside out, little by little, until she couldn't take it anymore. Family members have said that what her own father did to her didn't only take her sunshine away, but it completely shattered her soul. Michaela couldn't comprehend why her father would do this to anyone, let alone to her. She could not make sense of such evil, because nobody can, because that kind of evil is one that we cannot understand, because our minds are not sick and twisted the way that Stephen's is. Michaela couldn't live with it. It happened at her house in North Carolina. When the ambulance got there, they were able to resuscitate her, but 5 days later, on December 28th of 2025, she passed away in the hospital. And do you want to know the most infuriating thing about how this criminal case is playing out? Even though there was a kit done that night back in July and Stephen's DNA was found inside of his own daughter, the DA is telling Michaela's family that they may not have a case because Stephen claims that he doesn't remember what he did, that he doesn't know how his DNA got inside of her, and that because Michaela is no longer here to tell us her side of the story, the case turns into a he said, she said, and he is the only one here left to say anything. I'm pre-filming this video, but Stephen's next court hearing is scheduled for April 21st at 8:30 a.m. at the Ventura County Courthouse. Michaela's cousin has been very active on social media spreading awareness for this and making making sure that the people of the public know what they can do to help. But the biggest thing to keep fighting for justice is repeating Michaela's story over and over again and demanding that the DA's office listens so she can get the justice that she deserves. So like I said, I'm going to be tagging her cousin. Go over to her page for more information. And hopefully sooner than later, we can all say that Steven is behind bars where he deserves to be. That is all for me today. Thank you guys for spending time with me today and for listening to Michaela's story. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
This man is the reason I would never sit comfortably in a cinema screen. If you like cinemas and don't know who he is, you should probably scroll on. I don't want to put you off. His name is James Holmes. He was born in 1987 in California. He is said to have had a really normal childhood. He had friends, he liked sports, he was very smart, he done really well at school, very intelligent. He went on to study neuroscience and enrolled in a PhD at the University of Colorado. It was during this course that his whole life started to unravel. He started becoming increasingly withdrawn. His family and friends just stopped seeing him. He had moved out on his own. He was really suffering with his mental health. He had actually started seeing a psychiatrist on campus. He had spoke about the violent thoughts that he was having, the intrusive thoughts that he was having. He had told his psychiatrist and people around him, but they didn't realise how serious and dangerous he could become. In the weeks leading up to July 2012, he started planning a horrific attack. He started buying weapons, firearms online, materials to rig his house. He had bought loads of tactical gear. He was planning this horrific attack. He had actually filled out a notepad and sent it to his psychiatrist, stating all the things that he wanted to do. This would unfortunately not be found until after the attack, though. The 20th of July 2012, The Dark Knight Rises was premiering, and this was a highly anticipated movie. People were really excited. The cinema screen was packed. James had walked into the screen and he had sat in the front row. He waited until it filled up and then he left through the fire exit, propping it open so he could come back. What makes this even sadder is while he was out at his car to collect weapons, he had thought about changing his mind and he had phoned the mental health helpline, but because nobody answered straight away, he just continued with his plan. He went back into that screen wearing an oxygen mask and he just started letting off tear gas canisters. People couldn't breathe. There was a sense of panic. Everybody was running for the exits, but he wasn't finished. He just took out his firearm and he started shooting. Within 90 seconds, there was 70 people injured and 12 people dead. He had also rigged his house so that it would explode during this time. He had done this hoping that the emergency services would be too busy dealing with his house that they wouldn't be able to get to there on time and he would maybe be away, but he was wrong and police arrived within minutes. He was arrested outside and confessed it all. He was asked why he done it and he just said that he had a desire to kill. Police went to search his home and a bomb squad had to come to stop everything from going off. He was then diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, but the court still found him sane and that he knew what he was doing. He knew he was going to cause such harm. And he was found guilty of murder, multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. The death penalty was thrown out and he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. I do wonder that if that notebook had been found or that phone call had been answered, would he have still went ahead with it? I'm not too sure. Let me know what you think in the comments. These are the 12 victims that very sadly lost their lives that night. Such a tragic story that probably could have been prevented. If you like stories like these, don't forget to follow and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Last night, a mass shooting took place in Shreveport, Louisiana. 10 people were shot, 8 of whom were children. None of the children made it. The man responsible was 31-year-old Shamar Elkins, who was the father to 7 out of those 8 children. That neighborhood in Shreveport is usually relatively quiet on Sunday mornings, but yesterday morning was different. Police responded to reports of loud bangs in the neighborhood just after 6 a.m. local time on April 19th, and what they found when they arrived at the scene was absolutely horrific. It has been reported that the incident all started on Harrison Street, where Shamar's wife was shot. She is only 34 years old and the mother of his children. She is severely injured, but she did survive. However, Shamar did not stop there because afterwards he went to another home on West 79th Street where he shot the 8 children and a second adult victim. Like I said, 7 out of the 8 children were his. It sounds like the 8th was a cousin, and the second adult victim is the mother of that 8th child. She also survived. 7 children were inside of the house. An 8th was found dead on the roof after apparently trying to escape. Another another child, a 13-year-old boy who was also in the house, opened up a second-story window and jumped off. He suffered some broken bones, but he was able to run away, run to a neighbor's house to then call 911. Some of the other children tried to get away from the back door of the house when everything started happening, but they did not make it. Afterwards, Shamar Elkins ran. He fled toward a tire shop. A neighbor saw him running on a security camera. He then stole a vehicle and he sped off. By that point, authorities had been called and dispatched, and it led to a police chase. They were able to catch up to him and police then opened fire. Shamar was then pronounced deceased at the scene. But why? Why such a horrible attack? Shamar Elkins was born in 1995 and he had been living in Shreveport for a very long time. He served in the Louisiana Army National Guard from August 2013 to August 2020 as a signal support system specialist and a fire support specialist before he then left the Army. He also did have a criminal history. He was arrested in March of 2019 on a charge of illegal use of weapons on school property, and he had also been arrested for driving when he should not have been driving back in 2019. It also sounds like he struggled very badly with his mental health. Not only that, but he was also having a very hard time with his relationship with the mother of his children. In the days leading up to April 19th, he had spoken to his parents and told them that he didn't want to be here anymore because his wife wanted a divorce and he was, quote, drowning in dark thoughts, end quote. His stepdad tried to give him some words of encouragement, but allegedly Shamar responded with something along the lines of, quote, some people don't come back from their demons, end quote. A cousin of the family has also come out to say that Shamar and his wife were in the middle of separating and they were due to go to court today, April 20th. So could that have been a motive? We don't know. There's no way to know, but it sounds like it. On Easter Sunday earlier this month, what is that, like 2 weeks ago, Shamar posted a picture of himself with his kids on Facebook saying that he had attended Easter church service for the first time with all of his children. 4 days later, he also reposted an inspirational quote on Facebook that read, quote, dear God, today I ask you to help me guard my minds and my emotions, end quote. So it sounds like he wasn't a really not excusing his behavior, by the way, do not get that confused, but it sounds like he was in a very scary, dark place in his head. Why he decided to take out everything that he was feeling on his own 7 kids and an additional child and 2 other adult victims, it will never make sense to me. The reaction from Shreveport, as you can imagine, was immediate and it was devastating. And of course, this literally just happened quite literally last night, so more information, it feels like, is coming out every single hour. But the one thing that we know for sure is that this has broken the hearts of so many people, not only family members, but also just residents of the community. Police Chief Wayne Smith said, quote, I just don't know what to say. My heart is just taken aback. I cannot begin to imagine how such an event could occur, end quote. And the mayor at a conference stated, quote, it's a terrible morning in Shreveport, and we all know my heart goes out to this entire community for the tragic event that has taken place this morning. He described the shooting as, quote, a tragic situation, maybe the worst tragic situation we've ever had, end quote. And then he went on to say, our community is grieving the unimaginable loss of innocent children. There are no words that can make sense out of it and no distance that shields us from it. It is devastating. 8 children who will never get to grow old. That's all I have for today. Like I said, it does feel like new information is coming out every single hour. So if you see something after I post this video, feel free to comment it down below. But it's also devastating that Shamar is now gone as well. So what does justice even look like? Who knows? Anyway, thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
Huge lead in the Nancy Guthrie case. That is a big piece of evidence to catch this person. I'm a forensic scientist and a former CSI, and this guy might have made a key mistake. When he came to Nancy Guthrie's house, he was wearing these disposable black latex or nitrile gloves. Earlier, I was talking about how the FBI was searching along the road, and I was speculating that they might be looking for something that was thrown out of the window of a car, and they found something huge. A black disposable latex or nitrile glove all tangled up in a piece of shrubbery. This is a huge development. There's going to be DNA all up in this. So here's some FBI agents out doing the search. Here is the glove and the street is over there. When this agent gets out to collect the glove, see how his truck is kind of cattywampus here? Here's that truck. So the glove is just located in this area here. So potentially you could chuck it out your window if you were driving along this roadway here. It's also incredibly stupid to wear latex gloves to commit a crime and then dispose of it on the side of the road where police can find it. Obviously, nobody thought that this would be found, but it is a huge find. If this is related to the case, that's it. This is the suspect's DNA. What's going to happen now, and these wheels are already turning, is that this item is going to be collected, it's going to be taken to the lab, and once at the laboratory, it's going to be swabbed for DNA. A latex glove is an excellent source of DNA. You sweat in it, it's very close to your hand, all of your skin cells get sloughed off, it's amazing. But there are a few things that are working against investigators at this point. If this glove is in fact the glove that the kidnapper was wearing, it's been outside now for 10 or 11 days. Thankfully, it's Tucson and it's winter time, so I don't think it has rained. I'm not from Tucson, so I don't know if it's rained since Nancy went missing, but it's the desert, so I assume probably not. And since it's wintertime, it's not too hot. It's been like 70 or so degrees during the day out in Tucson, which means DNA didn't get washed away and it's not been out baking in the sun and degrading. So it is potentially still a very, very, very viable piece of DNA evidence. So the next question is, if a profile is developed in this, can it go up into the CODIS database? There are rules about what type of profile can go up into the CODIS database. It has to be a good profile. It can't be a very partial profile. There has to be enough information. So if they develop a good profile, they might be able to upload it into CODIS. The difficulty is that you have to articulate, you have to explain why your piece of evidence is crime related, and that might be difficult with a glove on the side of the road. I do think it's CODIS eligible. I think it can be uploaded into the system. It might be a little bit tricky, but if you're a DNA analyst and you're watching this, let me know in the comments if you think this is a CODIS eligible sample. The other thing is that if there is a good amount of DNA here, they might also do SNP testing, SNP testing for genetic genealogy. In order to do forensic investigative genetic genealogy, you would have to upload a sample into CODIS and not get a hit, and then you could do genealogy. So that's another route. The only other thing to consider here is whether or not investigators would have taken this for rapid DNA analysis. It is actually a decent sample for rapid DNA, in which case you get results in a couple of hours, so they would already have those results. I don't think they would risk it in this case, though. Rapid DNA, you need a good quality sample, a good amount of sample, so something that you wear like a glove is actually a good sample for rapid DNA because you can take some and use for the rapid test and save some and use for the traditional test. I don't know that you would really risk losing sample in something like this. I think you might skip over rapid DNA and just expedite this through a main laboratory so you get the best results possible. In any case, if this is in fact the same glove that the offender is wearing, it's huge, and this could be the break in the case that investigators need. If he's a convicted felon, it's over. His DNA would be in the database. Investigators would get a match. As soon as they uploaded the sample from this into the DNA database, they'd get a name, and that's it. It's done. So we're going to have to wait and see, but I don't think it's going to be a very long wait. I would be expediting it. I would be running it right now.
She could have just left on her own accord, but there's also so many red flags. What happened to Jennifer Lancaster, Sydney Smith, and Monique Smith? Jennifer Lancaster was 20 years old, living in Topeka, Kansas at the time of her disappearance. She had two daughters, Sydney and Monique Smith. She graduated from Topeka High School in 1998, and she gave birth to Sydney on March 22nd, 1999, and then Monique was born on April 6th, 2000. She worked at a bar called Remington's as well as a strip club called Baby Dolls. She lived with her mother, Vicky, and her 17-year-old sister, and then she was just known for being a very responsible mother who wanted to do what was best for her daughters. On March 12th, 2000, early in the day, Jennifer and her daughters went to her grandparents' house with her mother and sister. Everybody said that everything was totally normal and nothing was out of the ordinary. Jennifer wasn't acting a certain way or anything. It was just a good family time. At 8 p.m., they were back home, and Jennifer grabbed a bag that was filled with quilts and baby clothes, and Vicky asked what she was doing, and she said that she was going over to a male friend's house to wash them, which Vicky thought was weird because they had a washer and dryer at home, and she also didn't know who the male friend was, but at the time, she didn't ask any questions. On May 13th, when Jennifer didn't return, Vicky started getting worried, so she filed a missing persons report that night. Police were like, she's an adult. She doesn't really need to check in with you, but sure, we'll take the report. That's fine. The following day on the 14th, her car would be found abandoned at an apartment complex, and nothing was in the car. The bag of quilts and baby clothes were gone, as well as the girls' car seats weren't in there. And then a few days later, Remington's would call to say that they had Jennifer's check to be picked up. And Vicky said, just hold it. Like, she's not going to leave this check. Just hold it and see if she shows up. But she never did. Her mother, Vicky, started realizing that Jennifer's personal items were missing at home, and she believes that maybe she was slowly moving things out of the house. She did leave her cell phone at home, and when her mother checked, she hadn't made any phone calls the week leading up to her disappearance. Now, a few weeks would go by, and Vicky would check the mail and see there's a piece of mail for Jennifer. And it's from a Steak and Shake from St. Louis, Missouri. So she opens it because this is really weird. And it's a thank you for filling out a comment card. So Vicky calls the Steak and Shake to see if they still have that card and if they could mail it to her so she could see if the handwriting was really Jennifer's. But they threw it away. Jennifer, Sydney, and Monique's social security numbers have never been used, and Jennifer left money in her bank account. This case, I feel like, could go in so many different directions, but I have so many questions about every possible theory. Maybe she did leave on her own accord. But why wouldn't you take the money out? Why would you just leave your car and not sell it? Why send the Steak and Shake comment card? I mean, maybe she didn't think that they were going to send anything, but why would you even put that address down? And I mean, she could have had money built up from the club she was working at, but she couldn't have been working there that long. Her baby was only a month old. So why wouldn't you take the money out? And police have said they don't believe she would have harmed her daughters. But postpartum psychosis and depression are very real. And I mean, she was a month out, but why take the car seats in that case? And maybe she left on her own accord and then was met with foul play. I find it weird that the social security numbers were never used. Every possible scenario, I have so many questions. Today, Jennifer would be 46 years old, Sydney would be 27 years old, and Monique would be 26 years old. And I truly hope that they are out there somewhere just living their life. But there is a lot of red flags for me. If you or anybody you know has any information regarding them, you can contact the Topeka Police Department at 785-368-9400. Thank you for listening to their story. Be sure to follow for more true crime. And if you have any case recommendations, feel free to comment or directly message me.
Okay, y'all, I have to know who went to the Lavatory Museum in Phoenix before it closed. I went back in 2019 with a friend. We were on a road trip. Neither of us drink, so we were looking for something to do in the evening. She found this museum on maps and told me to call because it looked like there were timed sessions. So I call. This man answers the phone and he's like, "Hello, this is Brother Tonneson." And I'm like, "Hi, I'm calling to see about tickets for the Lavatory Museum." And he's like, "Yes, sister. Are you looking for tickets to the cleansing or just the regular tickets?" And I was like, what's the difference? And he was like, "Sister, with the cleansing, you experience the ball drop and the ball pit, and then you go through the museum. And with the regular tickets, you go through the museum, and when you get to the ball pit, the ball drop has already happened." And I was like, I guess, what is the price difference on those tickets? He said, "Sister, are you rich?" And I was like, I don't, he's like, "Say no." And I was like, "No." And I was like, "We're looking for tickets for 2 of us." And he's like, "Okay, sister, when you get there, tell them that you're a friend of Brother Tonneson and that your friend has the code welcome back and you'll get in for free." And I was like, "Okay, thank you so much. Bye." So I got off the phone and I was like, "Mina, are we going to this? That was weird." She was like, "Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. It's just a museum. It's fine." I was like, "Okay." So we get there and we see all these people gathered around the front door, but there's nobody going inside. And we get there, we see everybody holding printout versions of their tickets. And I'm like, they are not going to let us in here. Finally, someone comes out. They are dressed in very extreme emo style. And they start taking people's tickets. So we get in line and I'm like, "Mina, this is going to be so embarrassing. They're not going to let us in." And we get to the front and I'm like, "Hi, I am a friend of Brother Tonneson and she has the code welcome back." And he lets us in. I was like, okay, that was crazy because the tickets, I don't remember how much they were, but they weren't really cheap. That was for sure. I mean, it was a pretty good amount to get tickets for the 2 of us. And so we go in and we're sitting there waiting. And then all of a sudden, this Brother Tonneson man comes out. He's an older man, very tall, and he starts giving this speech. And I'll show a video of part of it so you can kind of get a vibe of what that was like.
I'd like to begin with an introduction. My name is Brother Tonneson. I am a volunteer with the fellowship. I welcome all of you. I would like to begin with introductions. Sisters in service, please descend. Thank you. Sister Kennedy, thank you very much. Sister Adria, thank you. Sister Jocelyn, thank you very much. Sister Void, show the brethren your response. Sister Void simply took her key and held it up. I'm going to ask Sister Void for her testimony at this time.
So then they make us do some rituals, and at this point, I think we start to pick up that this is a play on religion, is what they're doing. I remember they had us put toilet paper on our heads or on each other's heads or something. I don't even know. It was very odd. I kept thinking we're being inducted into a cult right now. So then the ball pit falls down. That was a fun experience. It was just like an adult ball pit. It was fine. Then we go over to wait to get into the actual museum itself. While we're standing there waiting for our turn to go in, Brother Tonneson comes up and he's like, hey, would you guys like to take some photos in my photo booth? And we were like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. It was literally a metal box. He like posed us in there and then started taking pictures of us with his cell phone. And I was like, when do we get these pictures back? And he was like, oh, I'll send them to you. Keep in mind, I was a lot younger, a little bit more naive. At this day and age, I would have been like, stop taking pictures of me with your cell phone. But I think we were just really confused about the whole situation going on. So I know y'all will come for me in the comments for that, but I was young and I was just thrown off at that point. Anyway, so we finally get into the museum. I'll play some videos of what the museum looked like. But again, very odd. Definitely the oddest thing I've ever been to.
This is what I see on this.
Oh my gosh.
Is
it more?
There's a personal.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
So we leave this museum, we get home, and I start looking up reviews of this place because clearly everybody else who was there seemed to have time to do the research. But because we decided on this museum so last minute, we didn't really get to read up on it to see what it was like before we got there. I'm doing some Google searching on this museum, and I start to realize in the reviews, he's leaving his cell phone number for people who want to come back. He's like, hey, text me if you want to come back. I'll get you in for free. So I remember, oh, this man took pictures of us with his cell phone. So I get the number and I text him. I'm like, hi, you took pictures of us on your cell phone earlier tonight. Can we get copies of those? So he sends us the pictures and I just kind of leave it at that. I follow them on Instagram because I was like, that was really interesting, weird museum. I'm going to follow them on Instagram. It must have been a few weeks after we went that they posted a story. Keep in mind, they must have had hundreds, if not thousands, of posts on their Instagram. And all of a sudden there's this story that appears that says, go check our page immediately, SOS, alert, alert. So I go to their page, every single post is deleted. There were maybe 1 or 2, 3, something like that posts. But they started going into how this Bill Tonneson, Brother Tonneson, Father Tonneson, whatever he called himself, man, was a well-known artist in the Phoenix area. And he had been assaulting all of these women that worked for him or interviewed for him. All of the above. I was just so shocked. I started looking into it. It was kind of during the Me Too movement, so it was a big story online. I was able to find it. It seemed like it was staying pretty locally, though, in Phoenix, Arizona type news. But I just have to know, did anybody else experience this? And what was your experience? Because that was one of the craziest things I've ever experienced in my life.
She was kidnapped at 11 years old and then found again 18 years later alive in somebody's back garden. JC Lee Dugard was born on the 3rd of May in 1980 in South Lake Tahoe. She lived with her mother Terry, and when she was 7 years old, she met her partner Carl and they got together, and then they went on to have a daughter called Shayna. JC was really close to her mum and her half-sister, but not so close to Carl. Family then moved in 1990 to quite a rural town south of South Lake Tahoe because they thought it was a safer community, a little bit smaller. But on the 10th of June in 1991, when Terry left for work early, she left JC, who was 11 years old, to walk and get on her school bus like she normally would when a grey car pulled up beside her. The man who was in the car tasered her while a woman in the car got out, got her into the car, undressed her, and then covered her head to toe with a blanket, and she held her down while she drifted in and out of consciousness. Carl actually saw this entire thing happen and he tried to chase the car down on his bike, but it was just going too fast and he couldn't keep up, so he called the police immediately. There was local and national coverage of the case. There was thousands of volunteers who assisted, thousands of posters put up in the area, and pink ribbons all over the place as a reminder of JC's disappearance. The man responsible was Philip Garrido, who was a convicted sex offender. Philip was born on the 5th of April in 1951. He struggled with substance abuse for practically his whole life, and in 1972 he was arrested for drugging and assaulting a 14-year-old girl, but she refused to testify for what happened to her, so the charges were dropped. But he would go on to strike again, and he then abducted and assaulted a 25-year-old. He would be sentenced to 50 years for the kidnapping and 5 years to life for the assault. But he only had to serve 11 years before he was out again. The woman who was in the car that day when JC got taken was his wife, Nancy. The couple met when she was visiting her uncle in prison, and obviously their eyes locked across the visiting room floor, and they fell in love. After being released and he was on parole, the couple lived with his mum until they ended up moving somewhere together. JC was held captive at this man's house for 18 years in a makeshift area that was in the backyard of his house, which was 170 miles away from where JC was taken. They renamed her Alyssa for some reason, and she was handcuffed the majority of the time that she was there. She was handcuffed while he was physically assaulting her. He made her shower with him. He would also have times where he'd take a load of substances and then just make JC be there and keep him company and perform acts of service on him while he was high. Philip repeatedly assaulted JC, and she actually ended up giving birth to her first daughter at the age of 14 years old, and then her second child was born when she was 17. JC took care of her daughters by watching TV and trying to teach them as much as she could, and she really struggled. Information was very limited. All she had was one makeshift room and a TV. JC was also forced to pretend that her daughters were her younger sisters to appease Nancy. When the daughters were allowed to meet other people, they just pretended that that was the case. They pretended that they were sisters. This area of captivity that she was living in was just like tents, but some of it had been soundproofed so that nobody would be able to hear her from the outside. The entrance to it was all secret, so you couldn't really see that it was there. It was all covered by like tall trees and a tarp and a fence. The shed could only be opened as well from the outside, so there was no way of getting out when you were already in. Dynamic between Philip and Nancy was so bizarre as well, and manipulative and weird. Philip was sent back to prison for failing a drug test, and Nancy took over as like the main talk of poor JC who was stuck there. It was like nothing let up, even when he wasn't there. It was Nancy that'd take over. 18 years after capturing JC and taking her hostage, Philip wanted to travel with her and the daughters to Berkeley University because he wanted to hold a religious event, because he felt like he'd realised how to combat problematic behaviours, like how he'd done his past crimes. He had like all these ideas. But while they were there, Philip's behaviour was really suspicious. The girls looked really uncomfortable, and so the special events manager did a background check, and that revealed that Philip was on parole for his previous charges and that he was on the offenders register and that kind of thing. So the officers were really surprised to learn that he had children when he was on the sex offenders register. So after that event was said and done on the 26th of August, police officers went to Philip's home, they handcuffed him and they searched the house. When Philip and the family went into a meeting at the police station the next day, JC, who was still going under the name Alyssa, said that while Philip was a convicted sex offender, he had changed his ways and he was no longer like that. But it was only after Philip admitted that he kidnapped and assaulted Alyssa that she ended up identifying herself as JC Lee Dugard and revealing who she really was. On the 26th of August in 2009, JC was reunited with her mother, Terry. Philip and Nancy entered guilty pleas for the kidnapping on the 28th of April in 2011. Philip received 431 years in prison since he was already a registered sex offender before the kidnapping. Nancy received a 36-year sentence. JC Lee Dugard received $20 million from a victim compensation fund, and in 2011 she published a memoir, A Stolen Life, about her years that were spent in captivity in that backyard.
This is the story of James Cosby, Houston, Texas, March 2014. 24-year-old Brittany Cosby and her girlfriend, 24-year-old Crystal Jackson, just purchased their first vehicle together, a 2006 Kia. A few days later, on March 5th, Crystal goes and pick up her 5-year-old daughter, Zanaya, from her grandparents' house, who is also Crystal's parents. Now, she's excited to show her parents about her new purchase. When she got there, her mother was excited and happy for her. But her father wouldn't even get out the chair to look at the car. He didn't really like her dating women. Crystal told her father that she loved him anyways, took her daughter and left. Now, the very next morning on March 6th, Crystal's mother, who also worked at Zanaya's school, noticed that Zanaya was not there. So all throughout the morning, she's calling Crystal's phone, but she's not getting any answer. Later that day, Crystal's parents decided to go to Brittany's house to look for them. Now, Brittany and Crystal did live together, along with baby Zanaya. They lived with Brittany's great grandmother, who was 90 years old and also in a wheelchair. Brittany's father just got out of prison October of 2013. In 1994, he was convicted of sexually assaulting a woman and did 10 years. Got out in 2004, went back in 2012 for the same thing. Now he's back at the house. James told Crystal's parents that he hasn't seen or heard from the girls, but Crystal's parents thought it was strange because baby Zanaya was there. That's when they decided to call the jail, they called hospitals, they even called the morgue. When they didn't get anything, they reported Crystal missing. The next morning on March 7th at around 7 a.m., an hour and a half away in Port Bolivar, a man working at a convenience store was throwing trash away out back when he seen what looked like two mannequins laying by the dumpster. Quickly realizing that the bodies were real, the police were called. But it was only one problem. The women didn't have no identification on them, so they had no clue who they were until they seen a piece of mail not too far from the bodies with Brittany's name and address on it. When the detectives went to Houston to break the news to the families, James put on an award-winning performance.
That's what we're trying to find.
But you agree, we understand.
Boy, but the question still remains, where was Brittany and Crystal's new car? Now, to get to Port Bolivar, you have to take a ferry. So the detective said, let's run that camera back. We need to see every car from the last day and a half getting on that ferry. And what do they see on March 6th getting onto the ferry? Brittany and Crystal's Kia. Now, the Kia was stopped by a security guard because the driver's side headlight was out. And when he stopped the Kia, a man got out of the driver's side to check the light. As you can see, with the camera being so far away, they couldn't get a clear picture. They called a security guard in for questioning and asked could he help with a drawing of the man that he seen that night. And this is what he came up with. Now, this was showed to both of the families, and everybody like, we don't know who the hell this man is. The detectives was focused on Crystal's dad because he was so vocal about not liking her lesbian lifestyle. And then he was kind of like bad-mouthing Brittany. He even said he knew that his daughter being a lesbian would take her out of here. Sir, his alibi ruled him innocent. Now, when the police go question James again, they said, James, you keep saying it was a normal day, but it's not making no sense to why Crystal and Brittany would leave baby Zanaya here. And while he's still saying he don't know, the police is noticing that the window shutter piece is missing. The same piece that was all the way in Port Bolivar with blood on it next to the bodies. They said, James, what happened to this window? He said, oh, it been like that. Noted. On March 13th, a candlelight visual was held for the girls. And the police said, let's while they at the visual, let's roll back over here to the house right quick. When the police got to the house, the caretaker of Brittany's grandmother answered the door. And the police asked the caretaker, is anything different around here? And the caretaker said, as a matter of fact, it is. Under the carport is crazy clean. It ain't never been clean like this. The first thing that they moved under the carport was a brick. And that's literally all they needed. Under that brick was blood splatter. They went into James's room and noticed that he had laid down new carpet. Up under that new carpet was pools of blood. You can tell he tried to clean it up, but couldn't get all of it. They put a black light in his room in the way that it lit up. My God. The police collected an overwhelming amount of evidence. Then they made their way to the visual, only to see James doing this.
We need to find out what's happening. The detectives are doing what they do. They've been keeping us informed as much as they can, but, there's nothing yet.
The police let him finish lying and arrested him right after that interview. Now, in interrogation, James didn't say anything. It was too much evidence against him. The sheet wrapped around Brittany's head was his. The blood in the house. The fingerprint on the mail. You tried to carry the shutter with the mail and still ended up leaving the mail. The security guard at the ferry pointed you out. About a month later, Brittany and Crystal's car was found in a tow lot. They had towed it from another lot. In the back of their car was a pool of blood and a bullet with Crystal's hair wrapped around it. In the ashtray, a cigarette butt with James' DNA. The detective said that this was the most amount of evidence that he had ever seen. I think he said it was like 300 and something pieces of evidence. Now, the theory is on March 6th, Brittany and her father got into some type of altercation. Crystal took baby Zanaya and put her in the car, put her in her car seat, and the two was waiting on Brittany to come out. And when Brittany didn't never come out, Crystal went in to check on him. And that's when she seen James beating Brittany to death with some type of object. And when James noticed Crystal, that's when he shot her in the head. Now, it's unclear if he shot her in the house or under that carport. He placed baby Zanaya back in the house. Then he went to spend a couple hours with his girlfriend until he dumped the bodies in Port Bolivar. I mean, Granny, you ain't hear none of this? That house didn't look too big now. You ain't hear nothing? James went to trial in August of 2016, and on August 11th, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. But he still has not said nothing. That's what's driving me crazy, because why the fuck